Hello everyone and welcome to a series I'm thrilled to kick off. Masterpieces and Disasterpieces takes a look at some of the ultimate gaming experiences and breaks them down to how I feel best showcases them in my own preference and sight. Keep in mind that all these opinions are my own and not a definite answer to if a game is good or bad. At the end of the day, games are a work of art, and as long as there is passion, there is worth. Now let's kick this off with one of my favorite games, one that was recently decided the ultimate game of all time. Dark Souls was released in 2011 and was later remastered in 2018. It had huge shoes to fill as being the successor to the critically acclaimed Demon Souls. The game went far beyond that of Demon Souls, gaining a humongous following and is the golden standard in game difficulty and world exploration. The original Dark Souls is very unique even compared to the other games within the Souls series due to how interconnected the world is. It contains one of the best soundtracks in gaming, used sparingly to really drive home the prompting grandeur of certain places and events. So it seems like this game has it all then. Well, not really. Although Dark Souls is fantastic in many different ways, it is also lacking in others. There are two main parts to the game's progression, the first being attaining the Lord Vessel, and the second being obtaining the Lord Souls. It is in that latter part that the flaws of the game really stand out, showing how rushed game development never bears any good fruit. Now with that out of the way, let's start with the better half of the game. We saw off in the Undead Asylum, locked away in a cell until one of the best boys in the series kicks a body down to us with the key to escape. From here we go through a hallway, see a big boy on the right, and climb up ladder to the best site within the Souls series, the BONFIRE. Bonfires act as checkpoints throughout the Londo Ruins, giving the player the only true safe space throughout the game. We open a huge set of doors in front of us and are greeted with the first boss of the game. The design of the Asylum Demon's fight is fantastic, steering the player away from it instead of towards it. This teaches the player one of the biggest advantages you can have with the game, and that is trying multiple things. Oftentimes the first attempt will be the one that gets you through to the area, but you have to learn what not to do, and from that you will grow. Running past the demon leads us to another bonfire into our equipment, gaining a weapon that can actually deal damage, and a way to heal ourselves in combat. Now that we're rightfully equipped, you can take on the battle once more and shoot that thick boy who's boss. While this is the easiest way to take on this area, FromSoft actually does give the player a powerful weapon if they're able to defeat the Asylum Demon without the help of your weapon, only using the broken straight sword. This shows us that hard-fought victories will be rewarded. Run through a hood of skelly boys that can butt stab you faster than Twitter can cancel someone? Get rewarded. Fight like game boss early on that still isn't difficult? Get rewarded. The starting area of Dark Souls teaches the player key ideas that carry through the entire game, making it an effective tutorial. Once you go up to hell and get carried by the big boards of Londo Ruins, the real game begins. After being dropped off in Firelink Shrine, the open world and interconnection of the game reveals itself. Right off the bat, you can go to so many different areas, several of which can take you to the correct place. This makes it so two different people with the same skill level in the game can have vastly different experiences. The only goal you have is to win the two Bells of Awakening, one that's above in the Undead Church, and the other far below in the domain of the Witch of Chaos. The game doesn't direct you towards one, it is on the player to explore and find their way to these bells. Going towards the church will lead you to the first gank battle, putting you against more than one boss at the same time. While challenging newcomers, the gargoyles are extremely fair and even let you summon NPCs to help you fight. Seeing how helpful NPCs are in battle will lead new players to seek out the questlines in order to achieve their usefulness in combat. However, players with more experience or wanting more of a challenge will steer away from these helpers to take on the bosses alone. After winning the first Bell of Awakening, the player must make their way down to Blighttown, one of the most hated areas in the game. While a lot of the original hate for this area came from its poor performance on Xbox 360 and PS3, even in remastered it can be a pain. Poison areas in Souls will always be annoying, but thankfully it doesn't have the insane poison damage that DS2 would get. With some purple mods, this area can be easily traversed to get to Kraylog. These bosses in Souls can be easily beaten by just sticking to the side like a sticker and going absolute ham on them. Trying to fight Kraylog head on is one of the biggest mistakes in this fight, but once you conquer this battle you get to ring the second Bell of Awakening and unlock the path to one of the most beautiful areas in the Souls series. But before we get into that, we still have one last place to cover, Sen's Fortress. This area can be seen as where the actual difficulty of Dark Souls begins. Unlike the other areas that we've covered, Sen's Fortress requires that the player takes everything head on. This concretes the gameplay style that Souls adapts, but a lot of the environment can only be conquered through luck or trial and error. This leads to Funhouse of Death to cause immense frustration. Thankfully, once you get outside the area, the fortress becomes less of a death-threatened maze and allows a straight shot to the Iron Golem. After you best him, you are granted access to Londo, the City of the Gods. The cutscene for Londo is a well-deserved treat after battling your way through the beginning of the game, showcasing an epic kingdom highlighted by the golden horizon that contrasts to all other areas in the series. The first of many battles here will be to try to get to the other side of the map. Having to battle the gargoyles again, but this time one-on-one, can be intimidating but is overall fun. Then you are led to the narrow rafters that makes even a Souls veteran begin to a nervous sweat. From here you unlock an elevator that not only progresses you to the next section of the game, but also doubles as a shortcut. The last stretch to gain access to the castle is to get past the formidable Silver Knight archers. It was like From Software wanted to up the ante from what they had in Sin Fortress. These knights have probably claimed more lives than even the legendary duo have. After you have made it through the grueling hardships that Londo supports, you're given one last challenge: Dragon Slayer Ornstein and Executioner Smo. From Software has tried many times to create an amazing gank battle, and this is the closest they've gone to reaching that. Ornstein is now Gwyn so brave that he wears the face of a lion, while Smo is denied knighthood for how brutal and monstrous he is. Taking on any of these opponents alone would seem to stand a challenge on its own, but the fact is you have to take on both of them. This fight works so well due to how the moves complement each other. Ornstein is weaker but boasts faster speed, while Smo moves fairly slow but hits like a damn freight train. The arena is also carefully designed, allowing you to use pillars and to separate the two in order to have a chance of not just being bent over and having to take one up the butt. Once you're able to topple one of the terrifying knights, you're left to face off with a souped up version of the one that lived. The only downside I can really pick at in this battle is how boring the first phase can be. On one hand, having a small attack window forces you to play more carefully, while on the other you can spend upwards of a minute with only one attack window. Even with that, however, this is one of the finest battles in the series, and ultimately what I would call the climax of Dark Souls, ultimately owning you the Lord Vessel. This is where the quality of Dark Souls really starts to decline. The game sends you to kill the 4 bosses that holds the Lord Souls. And while some areas are well designed like the Duke's Archives, a lot of this later part of the game becomes just a mad dash to those bosses. The 2 areas that I'd like to talk about in regards to decline in quality are the Lost Izalith and the Tomb of the Giants. Izalith is just a huge lava lake with early game bosses being used as common enemies. It just feels uninspired and lazy, not to mention that it leads to the worst boss in the series, not of difficulty, but just of overall design and practice. The Bed of Chaos is just a disappointing mess of a late game boss. Being the remnant of the Witch of Izalith, it would have been cool to face off against a husk of a former lord, but instead we got the lanky old bitch of Izalith that sweeps you into her holes. Dark Souls is not a platformer and overall the game has pretty clunky movement mechanics. Then why the hell would you put a platform boss in the game? Miyazaki even went on to call the boss his greatest regret. Next we have the Tomb of Giants, and while in general this area doesn't do anything insultingly bad as the aforementioned area, there's just no reason not to run through this area once you know your way. There is barely any reward for the exploration in this area. The only one that comes to mind is the large Divine Ember. The biggest problem with this area is that it's shrouded in darkness, making your first playthrough here extremely frustrating. To top it off, they throw a fan favorite pageant here as to give the player just one more middle finger. Thankfully, Neo is redeeming for his areas, what I would say if it wasn't trivialized by just playing Hugging Simulator 2018. He has one AoE attack that can hit you, but it has such a long tail that even a paraplegic would be able to evade it. I really wish I had a lot to say about the other 2 main areas of the game, but they suffer from the same faults of the previous, just on a smaller degree. New Londo is a bit brighter than Tomb of the Giants, but has a boss that acts as a DPS test. The Duke Archives feels underdeveloped, with destroying Seath's immortality leaving him a damage sponge which, similar to Neo, I find practically harmless as long as you can evade the AoE. I will give Seath credit, as if you're trying to obtain the Moonlight Greatsword, his fight becomes much more difficult as he starts to flail his tails around to keep you from cutting his main one off. However, this process can become unnecessarily frustrating as his main tail will just clip out the map for most of the damn fight. This leads me to never want to make a build of the Moonlight Greatsword, and I only ever find myself obtaining it again for an achievement. After collecting the 4 Lord Souls, the player gains access to the final area of the game. After the frustrating downgrade of the previous areas, the killing of the first flame really brings it all back together. You get face off against a decent amount of Black Knights, finding your way towards the first flame and the Lord of Cinder himself. Thank you for watching the first episode of Masterpieces and Disasterpieces. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel and join the Discord where you can vote on what game I cover next. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the flip side.